Calen Scholl. In the past century, the United States has deployed its military 18 times as an attempt to impose democracy on foreign nations. Only 5 out of these 18 times it has worked. That's a 27% success rate. This was stated by Extemp, who has a PhD from Harvard University in International Studies, and is considered an expert on U.S., Asian, and China relations, in the article Spreading Democracy Around the World, published January of 2003. Everyone in this room has learned about North Korea building up their nuclear army and global issues. But did you know that the U.S. aided them over $1 billion to try to persuade them to democratize? The U.S. should not force democracy upon other nations. First, I will explain the problems of a dictated democracy, and second, I will discuss the issues facing our country as we attempt to impose democracy upon other nations. First, let's start with the issues of a dictated democracy. Many issues arise for the countries we are imposing democracy on. Tom O'Connor, who has a bachelor's degree in English from Yale University and who was a journalist at the Los Angeles Times for over 30 years, in the article Spreading Democracy Around the World, published April of 2005, states that the U.S. only imposes democracy where it can benefit financially or strategically. This can cause a lot of problems because we are not forcing democracy for the right reason, helping the people. First, let's start with how we can benefit financially. We impose democracy in the Middle East in countries like Iran and Iraq because by doing so, they will let the United States buy their oil. This might seem like a good plan until either their democracy fails or they decide that they don't need the United States support anymore. The next reason we will impose democracy on a country is to benefit strategically. When we democratize a country, they become an ally. This allows us to set up a military base there. Right now in Syria, we have military bases set up to keep a close eye on the Russians to assure Israel's security will not be compromised. Another way dictated democracy can hurt foreign countries is U.S. interference in elections. The results of the elections will only be tolerated if the winner of that election is pro-U.S. Mark Gastrowski, who has a PhD in political science and who has been a professor at Tulane University for 30 years, in the article The 1953 Coup in Iran, published January of 2009, states that in 1953, the United States sponsored a coup in Iran to oust the Democratic Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. This happened because Mossadegh did not support the United States. Even though he was elected by the people, the United States overthrew him and replaced him with a dictator who did support the United States. Now that you understand the problems of a dictated democracy, let's talk about the effects this has in America. Many issues arise as we attempt to impose democracy on other nations. The first issue arises in the distribution of foreign aid. Emma Avery, who has a PhD in International Affairs from the University of Columbia and is the Asian Affairs Specialist for the United States Department of Defense, in the article North Korea, U.S. Relations in Nuclear Diplomacy, published April of 2013, states that we have aided North Korea over $1 billion to try to persuade them to democratize. Just think, by stopping our foreign aid to foreign governments, we can spend it in our own country for problems like health insurance, poverty, and homelessness. The next issue arises in the transferring of power. When considering the countries we are democratizing are coming from either a dictatorship, communism, or monarchy, very few people hold the power. The people who do have extreme wealth, influence, and control in their country. For example, in North Korea, during the Korean War, the communist leaders developed a hatred for the United States as we were trying to take their power away. As a result, North Korea has developed nuclear missiles that can reach the United States. The last problem arises as we deploy our military. 5 American soldiers have died in bombing since 2014 in the Syrian war. By stopping our involvement in foreign governments, we can save our money, our image, and our soldiers. First, I explained the problems of a dictated democracy, and second, I discussed the issues facing our country as we attempt to impose democracy upon other nations. The United States should not force democracy upon other nations. We succeed in imposing democracy 27% of the time, when we should be staying out of foreign